Thanks to Thrive Market for sponsoring this video.
If there's a hope that you can replace that thing with something better.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy. So the Loki Season 2 finale answered a lot of our burning questions, but it also opened the door for even more questions than before. So I want to break down Loki's new role as the overseer of the multiverse and how we can still be stuck in a He Who Remains Ouroboros loop. And of course, we're going to talk about how all of this will play into the impending multiversal war in Avengers the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. Okay, so we learn in this episode that He Who Remains never intended on letting Sylvie kill him. He always knew that he would come back.
Did you really think I was just gonna sit back and let her kill me? Reincarnation, baby.
A lot of what He Who Remains did and said in the Season 1 finale was revealed to be a lie. But what was seemingly true is that he was tired and handpicked Loki to be his replacement.
You two run the thing.
Loki spends centuries working diligently to expand the temporal loom's capacity, and eventually they succeed.
It's working.
He did it.
But for some reason, they didn't anticipate that no matter how much expanding you can do, you can never catch up with infinity.
Our loom will never be able to accommodate for an infinitely growing multiverse.
It's here that Loki realizes that he's going to have to go back and stop Sylvie from ever killing He Who Remains, to which Sylvie says,
If you want to stop me, you're gonna have to f***ing kill me!
Loki also learns here that the loom is nothing but a failsafe. And keep that word in mind. Failsafe, because I think that we could still be living out one of He Who Remains' many failsafes, but more on that in just a bit.
Geez, person, I am starving. There is never any food around here.
Well, actually, you know
Hey
what?
there, do you guys have any food? No, we were just talking about how there is no food.
Yeah, you know, you're at a video store at the end of existence, so it's really hard to get fresh, healthy food.
Yeah, and healthy, sustainable living is very hard in such a rural area.
There has to be a better way.
Guys, there is a better way. Look at all this food I got for the holiday party.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, check it out. I got gluten-free mac and cheese, I got fig jam, cereal, big bag of dates, dried mangoes, organic chocolate truffles.
Person, did you steal all that food?
No, buddy, I got this when I became a member of Thrive Market. They're the sponsor of this video. This is an online, community-based grocery store with a guaranteed savings on every single order. They curate the best products that you would find in a health food store, and they discount it 40% of the retail price. And they can do this because of the membership system. Memberships are $12 a month, but annual memberships are only $5 a month. Totally worth it. Like, I spent $100 on my first order, but look at that, I had $57 in savings. Like, these are the highest quality organic and sustainable products, and if you find a lower price somewhere else, they will match it. Plus, orders over $49 ship for free with carbon neutral shipping, and it's a great place to do your Thanksgiving shopping. They have frozen meals, turkey, and frozen orders over $120 also ship for free. This is a great way to try new products that you have never heard of before.
Oh, so is it just people food?
Yeah, buddy, sorry.
Oh, that makes me sad.
I'm just kidding, buddy. They got pet food too. In fact, I got you these sweet potato chews for dogs. You want that? Yeah, good boy. So if you join Thrive Market today with our link in the description, you get $30 off your first order and a free gift worth up to $60. Just go to thrivemarket.com/ScreenCrush and sign up today. You will not regret it. Now, back to what I was saying. Anyways, Loki decides that he's going to rewrite the equation of multiversal existence.
I'll change the equation. I'll break your loom.
He thinks that he can do what He Who Remains couldn't, allow for a vast multiverse with free will while simultaneously preventing a war that destroys everything. He Who Remains seems exhausted by Loki thinking he can change the inevitable.
Okay.
And I don't think He Who Remains' exhaustion with Loki is necessarily coming from a bad place. It could be that He Who Remains has gone down a similar path to Loki eons ago in his own quest to find a way to save all of existence.
I've lived 1,000,000 lifetimes.
A path that ultimately led to the creation of the sacred timeline. After all, he did say,
Kill her, and we protect what we can.
So why does Loki think that he can save the multiverse?
Well, I mean, that's what's unclear. I mean, we see Loki go out on a bridge to destroy the loom, and then he uses his magic to revive the dying timelines. He then weaves them into what looks like Yggdrasil.
What?
Well, in Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is the tree of life that encompasses all worlds. We actually hear Thor talk about it to explain the 9 realms in the first Thor movie.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
I'm just kidding, I meant here.
My father explained it to me like this, that your world is one of the 9 realms of the cosmos, linked to each other by the branches of Yggdrasil, the world's tree.
And if you'll notice there, he said his father told him about Yggdrasil, which means that Loki was likely taught Yggdrasil as well. And those teachings from Odin is what inspired Loki to morph the multiverse into this tree-like structure. Also, be sure to check out our Loki and the Marvels-inspired merch at our merch store where we design the shirts ourselves. We've got our Mobius on a Mobius riding his jet ski, a restrained Flurkin, Doug is a Flurkin,
I do not consent to my likeness being used in
and
this
so
way.
much more. Shopping our merch store is the best way to directly support everything we do here at the channel, and now we also have channel memberships where you can get custom badges, priority replies, and it's another great way to support the channel. And while I have you, I also want to mention our live show coming up in Brooklyn on February 22nd, where you can meet me and the whole ScreenCrush team in person. Link for all of those things are below. We hope to see you there. Now, while we get to see Loki create this multiversal tree, they never really explain how he was able to do this. I mean, I guess if Loki is now the god of stories like he is in the comics, then he'd theoretically be able to control the story of the multiverse and just, like, not let a war happen.
Wait, back up. God of stories? I thought he was the god of mischief.
Okay, so let me explain. In the Secret Wars adjacent comic book series, Loki, Agent of Asgard, we see Loki become the god of stories. Now, in the comic, Loki followed a similar path to his MCU counterpart. Now, like in the MCU, comic Loki had died, but when presented with an opportunity for a second chance at life, Loki decided to rewrite his story.
I can rewrite the story.
He no longer wanted to go down the path of a villain doomed to fail. He wanted to change. Eventually, this Loki learned how to navigate the multiverse and literally freeze time, just like we saw in the season 2 finale. So in the comics, Loki used this ability to rewrite his own story and made it to where he was never the god of mischief and instead the god of stories, a very powerful and almost omnipotent being. And that is the glorious purpose that Loki found in the season 2 finale, taking on the role of the single thread holding all of existence together, very similar to the Greek Titan Atlas, who held existence on his shoulders, except for one key detail. Atlas was being punished while Loki made a sacrifice, just like we predicted he would in this video here.
Congratulations, you're a prophet.
And can we talk for a minute about how huge this is? I mean, we have seen some powerful beings in the MCU. Thanos, Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, the Celestials, I could go on. But all of these characters exist within the very strands of reality that Loki is holding together. Their lives are literally in his hands. Loki is arguably, at this moment, the most powerful being in the entire Marvel multiverse. But Loki's entire reason for overthrowing He Who Remains was to allow for free will.
But what good is free will if everyone's dead?
And part of that free will is allowing He Who Remains variants to exist, as we saw at the end of the episode when they mentioned Quantum Mania's Kang.
Do any of them know that we exist yet?
Oh, I guess one of them caused a little bit of a ruckus on 616 adjacent realm, but they handled it, so we're all good for now.
Now more on that, specifically Kang, in a sec, because he is definitely coming back.
I'll be back.
So I'd really like to get a clearer picture on how exactly Loki's plan differs from He Who Remains', and what Loki's plan is to prevent the multiversal war from happening. He Who Remains' sacred timeline kept variants of himself from coming into existence, variants that would try to overthrow him and start another multiversal war. Loki's plan, on the other hand, allows for the multiverse to expand beyond that of the sacred timeline, and as a result, Kang's variants can come into being. So it's not really clear what Loki's going to be able to do differently than He Who Remains to stop these Kangs from taking over. I mean, is his plan really to have the TVA just take on any He Who Remains variant that stirs up trouble? I'm pretty sure that He Who Remains could have tried that approach to begin with, and I suspect that the result was that his variants were too difficult to defeat. That's why the easiest path was just to not allow them to exist. He Who Remains said,
My variants are already out there.
We'll find them.
There's too many.
And we know this Council of Kangs has come into existence. The Quantum Mania Kang that we hear mention of having been defeated was banished to the Quantum Realm by this council, so they're already plotting their takeover. And they have to be pretty powerful because they seem to be existing outside of time and space. In that post-credit scene, we can see them looking out at the branching multiverse, which we can also see here as the top of Loki's multiversal tree. Now, as of right now, the Kangs don't seem to know that the TVA exists.
They're beginning to touch the multiverse.
But the TVA also doesn't seem to know that this Council of Kangs exists. But I think they'll discover them soon, and then they are going to come for Loki. And that is what brings me to our big theory. We are still in an Ouroboros loop. Now we know that the multiversal war has happened before and that it will happen again. So what if we are still on the path that led to that first multiversal war? We have theorized before that Kang the Conqueror from Quantumania is the Kang who went on to become He Who Remains. In Quantumania, we see this Kang talk about how the multiverse needed order, and he even envisioned a sacred timeline. In the Loki Season 1 finale, we also hear He Who Remains say,
I've been dubbed many names by many people. A conqueror,
Now I think that this very Kang is on the same path to becoming He Who Remains. I think part of He Who Remains' original ascendancy not only included defeating his variants, but he also overthrew the TVA and the god at the end of time, Loki. In the final moments of the season 2 finale, we saw Ravonna in the void at the end of time. Here, Ravonna's coming into contact with Alioth.
It's a living tempest that consumes matter and energy.
We're in a shark tank. Alioth is the shark.
Now we know that He Who Remains is the variant that tamed Alioth and weaponized him to end the multiversal war.
I weaponized Alioth. I ended the multiversal war.
So here's our theory. That scientist variant we heard about in the season 1 finale became Kang the Conqueror and attempted to defeat his other variants and win the multiversal war. He then got banished by his variants to the quantum realm like we saw in Quantumania. That Kang was then defeated and sucked into his multiversal engine core. And after being sucked into that core, he was essentially pruned. And where do you think you go when you get pruned?
The nursing home?
No, the void at the end of time. And in this void at the end of time, Kang will find Alioth. And Alioth will obey Kang because the beast was already serving and protecting Kang's future self, He Who Remains. Kang will tame Alioth, and that is when he will come across a woman he doesn't recognize, Ravonna Renslayer. Ravonna will recognize him though, and she will join him in his quest to conquer the multiverse, just like we saw here in season 2.
You made a difference in this war. Thank you for being on my team.
Now, in Avengers the Kang Dynasty, I think we're going to see Kang and Ravonna roll in on Alioth and help the Avengers defeat the Kang variants attacking Universe 616. Kang and Ravonna will then travel to the end of time and find the mysterious god there at the end of time. It's there that we will see a parallel of the Loki season 1 finale play out. In the season 1 finale, we saw Loki and Sylvie enchant Alioth and enter the Citadel at the end of time, all with the intent of killing the man behind the curtain, He Who Remains. This time around, it will be Kang and Ravonna traveling to the end of time to find the god behind the curtain, Loki.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
As we discussed all season, we are living in an Ouroboros, meaning that the same thing happens again and again and again, and things like cause and effect can be swapped.
Oh yeah, retrocausality.
Exactly. We got the best example of that in this scene between Ouroboros and Victor Timely.
So if your work is based on his work and his work is based on your work,
Exactly which came first.
It's like a snake eating its own tail.
Now I think this Citadel at the end of time has been destroyed and built time and time again throughout all of eternity, switching between being Loki's throne and He Who Remains' palace.
Wait, so are you saying this is not the first time Loki has taken his throne at the end of time?
Exactly, and I think that we got clues that this was the case when we saw Loki walk up these invisible stairs. It's almost as if on a cosmic level, his very essence knew these steps were there because they always have been and they always will be.
So wait, who was there first, Loki or He Who Remains?
Well, buddy, there is no first. I think this Citadel and the TVA have just always been. We know that He Who Remains paved the path for Loki to find him because he wanted Loki to take over for him. But why Loki? Because Loki is the one he took the throne from to begin with. He also knows that if he lets Loki take control, that will result in his younger self coming into existence as that scientist that we saw in season 1. The scientist who becomes Kang the Conqueror and goes on to overthrow Loki. And after he beats Loki and wins the multiversal war, he will have the statues of himself erected throughout the TVA. And he'll have Ravonna and every other agent's memory wiped so that they don't remember the way the TVA was run under Loki.
Erase her memories.
Are you sure?
Erase all their memories.
Okay, but why does he erase Ravonna's mind? You know, I was never really clear on that.
Well, this Ouroboros shows us exactly why. This Ravonna will know things that Kang doesn't, and Kang won't like that. This Ravonna will also know that Kang, or He Who Remains, is destined to betray her like she saw in that vision from Miss Minutes. So Ravonna will likely be planning to beat He Who Remains to the punch and overthrow him, but as usual, He Who Remains is many steps ahead and wipes her memory, making her forget that he ever betrayed her. I think we'll also learn that Ravonna has been trying to manipulate Kang from their very first meeting, hoping that she could change the future, but in an Ouroboros, destiny always arrives. Meaning that the original reason He Who Remains ever wiped her memory to begin with was because of her planned betrayal from having known that he betrays her. Again, it's retrocausality.
Sounds like a bunch of bull stuff to me.
Excuse me?
Nothing, go on.
And after eons and eons and eons of ruling alone, creating the fiction of the Timekeepers to protect himself from being discovered like how Loki was, Kang, or now He Who Remains, will be tired and want a replacement. So he will pave the path for the younger self of the god he once overthrew to return to his throne.
I know it all, and I've seen it all.
Once again guaranteeing He Who Remains' own reincarnation. Once again showing us another He Who Remains failsafe to stay in power.
And around and around and around we go.
He Who Remains made it clear that he is all about fail-safes to stay in power. Whether it be the temporal loom or the time-slipping loop he placed Loki in, he always has a backup plan. And I think that we are living out yet another He Who Remains backup plan. Okay, so we are now trapped in this Ouroboros loop where Kang and Loki are essentially taking turns being rulers of the multiverse. But this time around, Loki will finally put a stop to it. Instead of Loki dying at the hands of Kang when he's overthrown, we'll learn that Thor followed Kang to the end of time after Kang helped them defeat his variants. It is there that Thor will find his defeated brother. And after a heartwarming reunion between the two, we will see Thor go on to fight Kang for what he has done to his brother. In the distance, we'll see Kang forming his new citadel. Loki will stop Thor and tell him that now's not the time, but that he has a plan. Loki will explain that he saw this coming, that he saw himself die at the hands of Kang. But what he didn't see was the arrival of his brother. It's this moment that will be the Nexus event that throws a wrench into this eternal loop. Like in the comics, Loki will become Avenger Prime. In the comics, there is a storyline where Loki flies into the sun, but he doesn't die. He finds himself at the God Quarty, a place that's very similar to He Who Remains Citadel at the end of time. With the multiverse at threat, Loki formed a team of Avengers from throughout the multiverse, and he himself became Avenger Prime. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see happen in Avengers Secret Wars. Loki surviving Kang's attack will be a Nexus event that results in the total destruction of the multiverse. Loki and Thor will then travel across the dying multiverse using TVA tech, and they will form a multiversal team of Avengers to stand off against Kang. And this big battle will take place on the last remaining planet in all of existence, Battleworld. And I think it's here that we will meet a new version of He Who Remains, the Beyonder.
Beyonder? I like that.
In the Secret Wars comics, the Beyonder is this cosmic level entity that actually brought everyone to Battleworld. Now, in the comics, the Beyonder is not a Kang variant, but neither is the comic version of He Who Remains. This version of Kang will act a lot like He Who Remains, and we'll see he and Loki have a candid discussion about their place in the multiverse, very similar to the one that we got in the Season 1 finale. And ultimately, Loki will realize that in order to fully put a stop to the Ouroboros that kept putting Kang back in power, both of them will have to be removed from reality. And that is when Loki will make an even bigger sacrifice than the one we saw in the Season 2 finale, and he will write himself and Kang out of all time and space, thus rebooting the Marvel Multiverse and rebooting the MCU. Well guys, that's just our thoughts on what's going to happen next. Do you have any theories? Let us know in the comments below. And big shout out to the writer of this video, Mr. Colton Ogburn. You can find his Twitter and mine below. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.